And she looked at me, she looked right into my eyes and she said, "This is not you talking." She said, "Your face is changing." And then I felt something step into my body and I started panicking. Even though I'm a medium, I was like, I could feel someone else in my body. And then my friend was like, "Just let her speak."
And how important is it to work with the actual gods or goddesses or deities that are with you? Because it's always so perfectly aligned with whatever we're dealing with in life.
Sometimes when those goddesses come up, at that time, I don't even know who that is. I never ask spirit, "Who is there? Can you tell me what spirit guide is there for me?" I wait for them to show me. I wait for them when they want to reveal themselves to me, because it's an element of trusting in what is unfolding. So often when I get clients go, "Why would you tell me this? Why would you say, stay with this guy that I'm unsure about or whatever?" And I said, well, it's not me telling you this. Two, we don't learn if we know everything all at once.
How much of it is free will and how much of it is not? It's predestined.
So this is where we have to discern that feeling that you were saying to me. Do I have resistance in this because it's something that I really don't want and I'm not meant to be doing? Or do I have resistance in this because I know it's going to be uncomfortable for me, but I know I need to do it anyway?
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end, my debt don't extend me out my dividends if it did.
If you have ever done a session with Gaia, or if you've watched any of my 2 previous interviews with her, then you know how much I love and respect this woman and this healer. And you might know that there's always a subtle transmission, a frequency that's being delivered from her and from me to you beneath the interview. So while you're listening, you are also receiving a healing transmission frequency.
This episode is made possible by our friends at Quantum Upgrade.
Your reality is literally being created by the quantum field around you right now. Most people think the space around them is empty, but quantum physics proved it's packed with energy patterns constantly affecting your biofield. Your phone and Wi-Fi are creating electromagnetic chaos that's disrupting your natural frequency. Here's what's wild. Scientists figured out how to actually flip this. Instead of your environment draining you, it can actually heal you by broadcasting beneficial quantum frequencies into your space. I actually use this app called Quantum Upgrade in my home, and the energy shift is incredible. You control it from your phone and feel the difference in minutes. And I really want to gift you with that quantum field. So just comment quantum and I'll send you my code to get it for free. Gaia, welcome.
Hi, Frank. Our first one virtually.
And yet it feels like it feels no different.
It really doesn't. But it's so nice to see you. It's been a long time.
I know it has been. I've been patiently waiting. I thought, because we scheduled this in January, it's now, I don't know when this will air, but it's now June, mid-June. And I was like, I'm sure she chose that date purposefully. Like, I don't think you just do things not on purpose.
You know, it was so interesting because when we were talking about dates, my spirit guide said this week in June, and it's the solstice week. It's Matariki, which is the Māori New Year, where Pleiades is really activated. So all of that energy is going to be in this transmission that we're doing here for your followers and your viewers. So it's going to be amazing no matter when they listen to it.
Wow. And what does that mean, the Palladian connection with the Maori? I didn't know there was a connection between the two.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Aboriginal culture where they focus on the Seven Sisters as a guiding constellation because it's the constellation in Taurus. And so this week in New Zealand, it's actually a public holiday because the Māoris are ushering their new year. So they use that constellation as their guide. And I think it's just a wonderful energy for us to be working with. And obviously, as you know, I've just come back from Peru as well. And with Peruvians and their focus on the solstice, it's just a really powerful time for us. So I think it's going to be a really great podcast.
Yeah, I feel it. I really do feel that. And so I want to talk about Peru because you just came back from that. And one thing that I really love is that in the past year, there's been Peru for you, Australia, Zulu, India. Let's talk about being led to a place. And what does that mean? Like with your personal experience and what you've seen in others. I personally have always seen massive shifts when there's a travel, but specifically when I don't know why, but I'm being told to go somewhere.
I think a lot more people are going to be finding that they are going to be called to different parts of the world. And because Peru is fresh in my mind, I this is, as wacky as it goes, I'm always going to just share all the parts of me. So the reason why I went to Peru, Frank, is because one day I was sitting with a healer friend of mine and I was just talking. I was thinking about going to Peru, and all of these things started coming out of my mouth. And she looked at me, she looked right into my eyes and she said, "This is not you talking." She said, "Your face is changing." And then I felt something step into my body. And I started panicking. Even though I'm a medium, I was like, I could feel someone else in my body. And then my friend was like, "Just let her speak." And so I knew that this soul that had come to me was wanting me to go to Peru to reconcile with the lifetime that she had had there. But that she was a version of me. So this is why it was coming out in my dialogue when I was with someone who could see, who knew that I was changing and it wasn't my words coming out of my mouth. And so then when I came out of that trance, I was like, oh God, I've got to go to Peru. Then I had my usual human response to it, like, oh, it's not a place I would, because if it was me booking something, I would control every aspect of it. But I had to go there and I had to trust. So what I did to prepare is I was meditating and my spirit guide said to me, get your breath sorted out. Get your breathing sorted out. And I was thinking, okay. And then they showed me altitude training. And I was thinking, what is that? And then I Googled, and there's only one man in the whole of New Zealand who does altitude training. And he lived in the town that I live in New Zealand. So I contacted him and I said, look, I'm just a normal person. I'm not an athlete. Because I could see on his website he was training people for Everest. And I said, look, I'm just an average lady. And he prepared me with the breath to get my breath under control. And all of that really paid off when I was called to Peru, because from the moment I got there, I didn't go there with my normal controllingness. I went there going, I'm being led here by a soul that I was once in a many, many lifetimes ago. If I heal her, I heal me, and then I can go on to do whatever else I'm meant to do. And from the moment I arrived there, because Peru and that area is all the sacral chakra where we create from, especially a woman from her womb. And so when I went there, I'd never met any of these people before. They'd all flown in from other parts of the world. I didn't really know what the itinerary was. I just went there going, I'm going to go and be led. So the message here for everybody is that don't overplan. If you get called somewhere, of course, do your due diligence and make sure you're safe and all of that. But just go there and be led. You do not need to follow in the footsteps of everybody else. So often people will say to me, what did you do? How did you do it? Just get there, get a guide, go for it. And so I was in this opening ceremony with a shaman, and the shaman was speaking in Quechua, and I've never met anybody before. And his wife was passing out coca leaves, which is you give your gratitude and your blessings with the coca leaves. And so she gave me my coca leaves and went and sat down. And then I had to speak up, Frank, because I looked at my coca leaves and I've had a different number of coca leaves to everybody else in the group. And I was thinking, I need to say something. So my mouth opened and I said, I'm sorry, I've got a different number than everybody else has got. And then the shaman spoke to our guide in Quechua, and the guide said to me, just put down the wrong number and leave the right number there. And then at the end, the guide came up to me and said, the shaman wants you to stay. And I said, okay. So everybody else left, and I was sitting there going, okay, this is typically me to be the one picked out or something like this. And he brought up the woman that I had been, because when I was telling that story to my friend who was the healer, when the lady was speaking through me, it was the story about how she was left in a cave to die, and that she was never able to create the life that she wanted. And so he said that to me. He was saying all of those things to me in his own way. And so when you get led to places, you will be taken on a journey through time, past, present, and future. Because if we don't acknowledge the past, it's very hard to be in the present, and it's very hard to move into the future because we're stuck in that timeline. And so when I was there in Peru, I really discovered, because I didn't really know much about the culture. You know, they have the representation of the serpent, which represents the past, the puma that represents the present, and the condor that represents the future. And I felt those presences when I was walking the Inca Trail and crying the whole way because I was so emotional. I mean, sure, lots of people be watching this thinking I skipped a bit the Inca Trail, but I really found it very, very healing and very, very moving and difficult. Like the first 3 hours I found very challenging because I knew I was shedding. So I think being called to places, if you're called to go and you can go, you have the means to go, just follow your instincts and trust that you will find the right people that will guide you and show you what you're there for. And then when you come home, allow that integration time to happen, because you get led to places all the time. You're a traveling man.
All the time. And this whole year I have not traveled at all, other than I was in Dubai the whole month of January. But other than that, I'm like in my hermit phase right now. Very much hermit, like, wow, disconnected from everything. It's been unreal. The level of disconnect and like detachment. I mean, I have, and it's so interesting because I was telling somebody yesterday, not from like a depressed perspective, not sad, just like don't want to do anything, like anything.
And that's your integration, because when we get into those phases, it's that time of something is awakening, something is going to expand. And it's the energy that I've been picking up as well, because I had this big adventure. I came home, and then now as I'm integrating, it is a bit like that. We're kind of collecting all our tools. We're collecting everything that we need before the expansion happens. And if we look globally, there's so much chaos going on. Everybody on some level, and all the healers in the world, which there are many of us in the world, they are all in that space of like having to hold that energy for the chaos right now. And so once that starts to settle, then we can break through and break free into what we're meant to be doing next in this next part of our evolution.
This is your third time on the show. And well, actually, before I ask you about that, I have to know, did you ever find the cave when you were in Peru?
This is the next part of the story, because I had so many magical things happen in Peru that I'm still sitting there going, gosh, what was that all for? So I made friends with another lady that was from the States there. And there was one day where most of the group were going off to do a San Pedro ceremony. And I didn't participate in that. And the other girl also didn't want to participate in it for our own personal reasons. We just didn't want to. And she's like, let's go to this place. And I was like, you lead the way, because my thing for this trip was like, I'm not going to lead anything. I'm just going to follow. So we went to this place. It was like we were in the taxi for like half an hour, like on these dirt roads. I'm like, where are we going? And she's like, I don't know. I saw it online. So we get there to this place, and there are all these carvings on the wall. The artist had carved faces into the face of the rocks. And I was like, wow, this is a really interesting place. So we bought standard tickets and we're walking around the exhibition looking at this artist's work, and it was incredible. And then we get to this door, and my feet naturally start walking into this door, and it's underground. It's a crystal cave. And then a guy stops me. He said, you don't have the right ticket to come in here. And he said, but if you pay 5 soles or whatever it is, you can come in. So I looked at my friend. I said, shall we go in? And she said, let's just pay it and go. So I went in there, and it was crystals all around. And I said to my friend, I'm going to sit on this crystal. And I said, can you take a photo? Now, jumping back to the day before we had hiked Ausangate Mountain, the main apu for the Andes, where the Peruvian people pray to this grandfather. And he was very communicative with all of us, and obviously me, because I was there on my own journey. On that day, I met a young girl, a beautiful young mountain girl who was about 12 years old. I have a picture of her, but I won't show it publicly because it's someone's child. So I took a picture of her. I kept it on my phone. Jump back to the cave. I'm sitting on this large crystal, and my friend takes a photo of me. So leave it there. That night, she sends me the photo, and I look at that photo, and I was like, that's not me. That's not my face. That's not my body. That's not me. And I looked at the photo and I looked at that photo of the little girl. My nose was like the little girl. I looked like a Peruvian child sitting in the cave, a young woman sitting in this cave. And I could feel that woman come up inside of me again saying, "You took me back to the cave and you freed me." And so when I left that cave, I felt free. So it was amazing that I had an image to show, because I showed a few of my healer friends, like, that is not you. That's not your nose. That's not your body. That's not. And so, yes, I did get to the cave and freed her. So it's really interesting when we step on land, what we could be freeing inside of us that may be a reconciliation with a past life of us or a parallel life of us. Because I've had experiences when I've gone overseas where I've come home and it had something attached to me that I've had to release. But Peru was very different for me because, you know, even the lead up to going to Peru, and this might be happening to some of the people that are watching this because our bodies are changing so much with all the energies. I had this smell on my body for about 3 months, and I smell disease when I see certain people. And I was thinking, oh gosh, you know, is something wrong with me? Am I unwell? It was like a horrible smell of like death. When I went to Peru and I freed this lady, it was literally overnight that smell completely disappeared. I was like, oh, I smell like me again. I was like, oh, I smell. And I ended up losing all this weight, physical weight also while I was there, because it was like freeing of the heaviness of the energy. So it was just a really awakening time for me and the journey that I was taken on. But it is very much like you say, coming back to ourselves, integrating, waiting for the next move, which will be shown to us.
Yeah, that story is really interesting. It reminds me, like, I forgot about this. It was like 10 years ago where I went to somebody's house, a really famous figure in history, and he has a castle, and this amazing castle. And I go to the castle, and there's like photos of all these people who used to go there, Charlie Chaplin, Albert Einstein, like incredible people in history. And the guy was a famous journalist billionaire, and from California, all these like stories that were really similar to mine. But I didn't know all this till later when I looked it up, you know, after I left the castle. But when I got there, and this was one of those trips where it was spontaneous, super last minute, unplanned. I didn't know what I was going to do there. And when I was taking this tour, I felt like I had been there before. I feel like I knew the place. I was like, this is my home. To the point, Gaia, where when the guide that works there, they have these little security guys. They're like teenagers. They're like with little like flashlights. And he was like, sorry, sir, you can't step here. You know, like this is like a closed off area. And I felt like he was someone in my house telling me that I couldn't go. Like it was such a weird feeling. I was like, who is this person telling me where I can go in my house? Like it was that kind of a feeling. Later, I looked this guy up and we have the same birthday as well.
It's so interesting. And that's why we have to really pay attention why we get called to places. I said to a friend recently, it was a guy friend, I said, you know, Peru has changed my life. And he's like, yeah, but I went there. It didn't change mine. And I was like, well, because you went on a holiday. I said, I went with the intention to receive healing from the land. And so that intention changes everything. So when you went to that castle, you didn't know, but your soul took you to something that you would recognize. And that is happening a lot with people. It's like we're being called to places and people that we recognize. Like I had a client recently, Frank, and I'm getting at the moment, you know, spirits will bring us the people that we need to learn from too, obviously, because we're human beings as well. And I'm seeing a lot of Ethiopian clients at the moment, which I love because the culture is amazing. And I didn't know this woman was Ethiopian when she came online. And a spirit came through and said to me, tell her, you know, because I could see in another timeline that she had a son. And I said, do you have a son? And she said, yes, I do. And I said, okay. I said, well, when was he 19? And she said, however many years ago. And then I said to her, he's telling me, well, that's the time I was last alive. And she said, well, he's passed away now. And I said, okay. And she said, he passed away at that age. And it's really interesting because she was living in the States, but she's been called back to her country because her son had passed away, and she's been called to work with the land and with the people. So someone like me and someone like you, we are ethnically different to where we live. And our lands are needing us in some way, whether we're going there or whether our people need us. What we're doing is that we're reconciling with and the people that we've come from. And I'm seeing this happening a lot. So you might be, not just you, but everyone listening, called back to make amends with where you are from. Because I've always had so much, I feel not even been to Sri Lanka, Frank, and I'm Sri Lankan because I classify myself as Malaysian, New Zealand, because I was born in Malaysia. But even with Malaysia, I have resistance when I go there, but I know it's important for me to go to that land. So being called to places might not even be some exotic trip. It might be being called home.
Scientists just discovered that your house is making you sick and tired. The electromagnetic frequencies from your Wi-Fi, smart TV, and devices are creating chaos in your nervous system, and you think you're just tired, but you're actually being drained by invisible energy pollution. Here's what's wild though. Researchers found a way to flip your environment from energy vampire to healing sanctuary. Instead of your space draining you, it can actually charge your biofield with beneficial quantum frequencies that boost focus, energy, and performance. I started using Quantum Upgrade in my home office, and it's honestly like someone turned up the volume on my life. I have clearer thinking, better sleep, and way more energy throughout the day. Your environment should be supporting your highest potential, not sabotaging it. So comment quantum and I'll send you my code to transform your space into a quantum healing field for free.
Well, this is crazy that you're saying this because, well, first of all, when you brought up the sacral chakra of the earth, where you were, the energy, I was thinking a lot of clients coming to me lately have misalignments in their sacral chakra. I keep clearing that. But right now, what's really interesting that you say this is, I didn't know you've never been to Sri Lanka. I have been to Lebanon, where I'm from, at least 10, 12 times, but I haven't been in like 10 or 15 years. And I used to go every summer, and I'm really having trouble going. And my brother and sister go all the time. My sister is on her way there now. She's on a flight right now there. My brother's thinking about going in August. I was just on somebody's podcast. He's British. I thought he was just full British. He's like blonde hair, blue eyes. Turns out he's Lebanese, and he's there now. And he's like, you should come. You should come. And I have so much resistance. I, for some reason, know I'm supposed to go and heal some ancestral thing. I know it. And yet I'm putting it off. I don't want to do it.
So when we feel like that, because when we have a resistance by the knowing, I would always follow the knowing. I will always fight. It's not a resistance of like, I know I'm not meant to go and then I'm forcing myself to do something I don't want to do. But if I've got resistance and a knowing like I need to go here, whatever the reason is, because this conversation's not coming out of our mouth for no reason. We are being called home. And that was our first home when we came into the body, is in the sacral chakra where all the cells began for us to be able to incarnate into this physical being that enables us to move and travel and create. So that area of creation is so very, very needing to be activated right now. This is why you're seeing a lot of people needing help in that area. And so am I in my own way with what I do. Actually, before this podcast started, Ring, one of the most magical things happened. And this is about creating and manifesting. So I know that you follow my Monday mantras and things. And I think just before Peru, I was talking about bones, ancestral bones, which leads into what you're talking about and why you're needing to go to Lebanon. And someone had tagged me in a post about these tarot cards that they'd come across that related to what I was talking about. And so I went and had a look at those cards and I was thinking, I need to get those sometime. Frank, yesterday I got home and they not even wilder. So I walked home, I got home and Lucy's like, your cards arrived. And I said, what cards? And she said, the ones that you wanted. And I said, I didn't order these. And she's like, are you sure? Check my bank statements. I was like, am I crazy? Like, did another version of one of these? So I emailed the lady and I said to her, who's ordered these? And she said, I've got the email. We read it when we came here. Hi, Gaia, this is going to sound so wild. I have no details of an order. I have no details of money coming in. I have no details of anything. She said, I literally think the universe wanted you to have these cards because she said, poof, they're there for you. So what I'm saying is that, because these were just not cards that I just were nice to have. I was like, I need to order these cards. Like, I really want these cards because they were brought to me as, Gaia, you would love these. Then for them to show up yesterday, and then us recording today in the week of solstice and Matariki, and then talking about the sacral chakra, which I can feel activating for everybody now as we're speaking. We have this ability to be able to create our existences and bring in what we want. Like, the term manifestation is used so flippantly, and I think that it's beyond that now. It's that pure alignment of what we are meant to have in our lives. And I know in a world where people are suffering and struggling, the ones like us who have the ability to hold the space and to shift energy, that is all going to reverberate to help those people to create in the way that they need to. And, you know, this week, even though I know this podcast will be out when it's meant to be out, it's like we are being met at the gate of the Creator. For some people, it's a mass exodus of people removing their body and just coming fully into the embodiment of their light, their soul. For the rest of us who still have this human body, it's like we are so close to the creator of everything, that we are able to create. Those cards, that lady had no, she's like, I don't know how they got to you. She said, someone's obviously seen the order and just put it out without checking if there's payment. She said, they're for you, you're meant to have them. And that's happening to a lot of us. So when you're working with the sacral chakra, it's because everybody's coming to that verge, the gate of creation.
There's so much I want to ask around that, but I want to like get to something that I think is important because we're like 22 minutes into the thing, and I'm sure people know who you are because like I said, you've been on twice already. But for people who are watching for the first time, I want to talk about your custom meditations. And one thing that I really want to get specific about is because you told me on an episode where I was like, you know, I've been on your wait list for like 1.5 years, and you're like, try the custom meditation. Like they work, I go into the same space and that I worked in a session. So I was like, okay, so now I've done 2. I want to do a 3rd one soon, but I noticed that I can do it 1 year later and it's like a whole new layer unfolds. It's almost like doing it for the first time. The reason I want to bring that up is, do the custom meditations work beyond space and time?
Absolutely. Like when I do them, I'm tuning into the frequency that you need, because there's a medicine that you need. And that takes me into a space so that when a client does it forever, as they evolve, the frequency that I've embedded into that is going to evolve with you. So it does go beyond space and time. Like when I'm sitting there doing them, my body will be moving in the way that I would be if I was working with someone. I will be releasing energy in the way that I would be if I was working with someone. And they're just a good way for people to work with something on their own, because we need to learn how to work with our own frequencies and energy. Sometimes it's great to have someone there hold the space for you, which is what those meditations are about. And then you derive from it what you need at the time that you need. But there's a lot of enjoyment in making those, because I know that, okay, this client might not realize it, but you know, this goddess is around them, or this being is around them, or whatever. But I can feel it as I'm recording them. So absolutely, they're made for now until forever. So it wouldn't matter what stage in life or when you received it. Everyone can do them whenever they need to.
And how important is it to work with the actual gods or goddesses or deities that are with you? Because the ones that you've brought up in mine, and with my clients who have told me about the different versions that they've had with you, is always so perfectly aligned with whatever we're dealing with in life. One of them for me was like the goddess Draupadi, for example, and I really have loved working with her. And I also thought it was really interesting you brought her up, because in one form or another, you always bring up fire energy when you and I talk, almost always. And I do work a lot with fire. It's like there's always a fire on my altar. And it's interesting that you brought her up. But like, yeah, how long should I work with her? How long should somebody who's doing these custom meditations work with that energy?
You will be called, intuitively, you'll be called to work with those goddesses and deities when you feel like you need to. And this is something I like to tell my clients. Sometimes when those goddesses come up at that time, I don't even know who that is. I'd be like, oh gosh, they're telling me that I need to call this goddess in for Frank or whoever I'm doing something for. And I'll need to go and look and look at the image of her or whatever, and be like, this is what you need me to do. So, and that's what I love about my naive way of working in the spiritual realm, is that I never ask spirit, who is there? Can you tell me what spirit guide is there for me? I wait for them to show me. I wait for them when they want to reveal themselves to me, because it's an element of trusting in what is unfolding. Because if I'm like my controlling nature, which I do have, who's there? What do you want? What are you trying to tell me? But if I just naturally go into that space and they will reveal. And so you will know, because you are intuitive and you are a healer. Draupadi will come to you when she's meant to come to me, and then you will know, okay, I'll jump on and work with that. Kali is meant to come to me now, so I'm going to go on and work with Kali. And so I feel like more deities, more gods, nature. What I loved about Peru is their temples are nature. You go to the moon temple and their caves and their trees and their rocks. That is the true God. That is the true, the essence of the guides that we are wanting to follow. And so that's why I always think the deities will tell you and come to you when they're ready for you to receive an activation. And even last night, I always prepare for any podcast or anything that I do, so that those who receive are receiving a transmission of a ship, not just words coming out of our mouths. It's like you and I were working together, and it was really interesting. Like, I wore my star necklace today, and I brought my Merkaba, and I've got it under my laptop. And it's like they placed you in the center of a star. They placed you, it's like, what's coming to mind is like a Hollywood Walk of Fame star. They put you in the center of the star, and I was sitting outside of it because I'm being held by you on your space. And I just feel like with Pleiades, the constellation, the Seven Sisters, all the stars are starting to align for us. And as I say this to you, I can feel that this awakening of the guidance that we're receiving, whether the deity are star systems, whether you are being spoken to by Mother Mary. And this leads me to a really good case study example, so people know what I'm talking about. I had this client the other day. She came online, and I had a shaman come in spiritually. And the shaman had long legs and beads around his ankles. And on his head, he had the head of a hog. Not a pig, not a warthog, a hog head. And I was thinking, what is this? What does this mean? And the shaman said, I will reveal who I am as you go through this journey. So I said to her, I've got the shaman here. He's coming here to awaken the shaman in you. I traveled into a parallel life. This lady was in this lifetime being held as a sacrifice by these men in the village who didn't want her to have the power. And the hog-headed man had brought her into the lion's den. And then I said to her, I have to free you from this thing so that you can step into your power. I said, you're a very powerful healer, but you can't step into your power because you haven't acknowledged the God and the guides that have tried to put you in the lion's den in this particular timeline. So then when I freed her, the hog head came off, and I said to her, it's your son. And I said, do you have a son? She said, I do have a son. And she said, we do not talk. And I said, the reason why you do not talk is because he led you into the lion's den. He thought he was doing the right thing by you, but he actually took you where people were wanting to strip you of your power. And so she doesn't have a relationship with her son because of this guilt. And he also knew that the mother had power, but didn't want her to have it. And so that deity, even though it was a shaman, it came at the right time for her, because it's time for her to step into her healing abilities and help people in the way that she's called to. So everything will come to you at the right time.
One thing I've really noticed heavily in the last 6 months is that a lot of the clients that come to me are healers, and they could be accountants, they could be Silicon Valley executives, they could be reporters, and they'll say, I think I'm a healer. Or I'll say to them, like, do you realize how intuitive you are? Because before I even tell you what the thing is, you're already knowing, or you're already saying, oh yeah, I think that's my third eye or my whatever. They already kind of know. And I know that you get a lot of healers as well. Do you think there's a reason why you and I attract healers as clients?
There are so many healers in the world, and we're needing more and more of them, because people are needing healing. Even people who don't even realize that need healing are needing it. The world herself, Pachamama, Mother Gaia, needs healing as well. So as people are starting to recognize that they are a healer to contribute to the healing of the world and humanity in some way, they are drawn to people like us who can see the truth in them. Because if we can acknowledge, it's like any of us, Frank, it's like we sometimes need someone to validate something for us, and we're all like that. I mean, I remember Beyonce on something asking someone, was that okay? You know, it's kind of like we all need that validation. And I think the people that are coming to us know that we will tell them the truth to empower them and not be like this lady that was in the shaman life where people go, you don't have power, you're going to suppress it because you having power takes away from me. That's not true. You having power uplifts everybody else because we it's a shared responsibility. It's a shared dharma here in the world for us to have that responsibility and duty. So I think that's why we get those people, because they know we will see them for who they are, because they see us for who we are.
Are you a healing practitioner who is stuck in a job that drains your soul? Or maybe you are currently practicing but struggling to find the right clients and be seen? Well, in my online course, Awaken the Healer Within, I will show you how to ditch imposter syndrome, awaken your spiritual gifts using real, ancient, Vedic, and Egyptian techniques, and all at the same time build a prosperous business with soul-aligned clients who want to pay you. I'll show you the exact strategy that took me from 4-time Emmy Award-winning journalist to healing practitioner making 6 figures. Plus, there's a weekly coaching call so that I am guiding you every step of the way. Now, if you're ready to turn your purpose into prosperity, just visit awakenedhealers.com/join.
I'm wondering from your perspective what you think between, this has been coming up a lot, between free will versus choice.
Free will and choice.
Sorry, how much of it is free will and how much of it is not? It's predestined.
You know, when I tuned into what we were going to be talking about today, Spirit did actually bring this up with me and sort of said, you know, the choices that we are making are really, really important right now. And I think, you know, this week when I was meditating, they showed me the Ace of Spades. And the Ace of Spades, I think, God, what does that mean? I looked it up and it's about death. And it's in line with the Monday mantra. And then my session the next day with someone random I've never met before, I've got this massive pack of cards. It's like 86 cards or something in there. And they've all got different weird images on them. And I was drawn to that pack. I shuffled it. And out of the pack came this devil joker looking guy. And he's holding an Ace of Spades. Now, I had told my assistant and I told my partner, so I was like messaging after going, oh my God, the Ace of Spades actually came up in a session today as well. Spirit validating that the choices that we are making are being heard and we are creating them. So how much of it is predestined? I feel that the number that comes into my head as we're talking is about 65% of what we are going to experience is predestined. There are some things that we just cannot avoid, like when we're going to be born, when we're going to die, who we're going to, the big things I feel are predestined for us. So often when I get clients go, why would you tell me this? Why would you say, stay with this guy that I'm unsure about or whatever? And I said, well, it's not me telling you this. 2, we don't learn if we know everything all at once. We don't learn what we're meant to learn to progress us into something else. This is your choice to stay because you can leave if you want to leave. There's nothing stopping you. So this is where we have to discern that feeling that you were saying to me. Do I have resistance in this because it's something that I really don't want and I'm not meant to be doing? Or do I have resistance in this because I know it's going to be uncomfortable for me, but I know I need to do it anyway? That's when you know you have a choice. When things are predestined, it'll be like the cards that show up, or it'll be like me going to Peru, not really knowing what I'm going to experience, but then seeing the photo of me look like a Peruvian woman, or the shaman telling me the things that he did, or all the things that I experienced. Some things are predestined, but the number that's coming to me that Spirit wants me to say is about 65%. So this is why, you know, people like you and I know you are very disciplined. I'm also very committed to the things that I do in my own way. And that is required. So those people who are stepping up to be healers, you also need to understand the responsibility that comes with that. Because people see the glamorous side of things like, oh, I know and I can see and all these magic things happen. But when you are working with people's trauma and you are working with people's feelings and emotions and the human side of things, like working with mothers who've lost their children and diseases, there's a responsibility that you hold in that. And that is predestined. That is something that the healer is meant to experience. But I do feel like we do have a lot of choice and free will. And from what Spirit has said, there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts with anything anymore. We have to see the karma through for it to be ending. And then we have even more free will to move around and create what we want to create.
It was interesting too that you brought up death. The death energy has been coming up a lot, right? Physical and energetic death, emotional death, death of old programming and patterns. But just yesterday, actually, I got invited by Sadhguru's team to go meet him in a private meeting, and then from there go to his lecture about death. And I couldn't go, actually. I skipped it. I had a prior engagement by the time they invited me. But I was sad to miss it because I do love the topic of death more than anything.
I do too. And, my friends would be like, Gaia, you're so morbid. But it's not from that space of being morbid. It's when Spirit had given me the Latin phrase memento mori, I didn't even know what it meant. I had to look it up and I was like, what are you telling me, memento mori? And it's like, remember, we will die. And I think it's really important that we do have that knowing that the physical won't be here to create the things that we want to create on this earthly journey. So therefore, why don't we try to do our best knowing that that time could come at any time? So I love the topic of death also because, like you said, it's not just physical death. We're constantly evolving and changing. Like that version of me that I went to Peru with the smell of death on me and that woman that needed to be freed, that's put to bed now. That karma is shut. That version of me is dead. I don't need to hold on to her fear of the inability to create because she was left in a cave to die because of her powers. And so I feel like not everyone will be so aware about what parts of them are dying, but to acknowledge that you can put to rest versions of you that has been. You can change. I've seen so many people that have had pasts as addicts or things like that who have stepped into being powerful coaches and powerful healers because without those wounds, they couldn't really be able to help and teach people without experiencing it themselves. So I feel like as death is occurring, sure, we are seeing horrible, tragic deaths in the world. But it's also allowing us to come to that realization that anything could happen at any time. And it's time for us to step up and really think about this chapter of our lives. Whenever you are watching this, even if it's 5 years from the time that we filmed it, what if this was your final chapter? What if this was your final chapter? What are you going to write? And this leads me to a story. A lady I met recently went up into a parallel life and she was writing a book. But it was really interesting because in the book, she would write one sentence and then the second sentence was blank. And then she'd write the third sentence and then the fourth sentence was blank. And I said to her, you need to write your book. And she said, and I was telling her about what I was seeing. And I said, you didn't write everything you knew because you were afraid that people would think you were crazy or that people were wanting to take this information and steal it as their own. And when you're in Peru, any of these sort of indigenous places, you hear about those who went and, conquered the land and took away the ancient knowledge. That ancient knowledge is starting to awaken within us even more. So some of the death that we've experienced is coming back alive so that we could document it before it could be really put to rest. So when this book was being written, it's like it's time for us to write that final chapter and put in energetic codes. This is where our legacy is going to be here on this planet, no matter what it is.
This is like bringing up a lot of things that I don't even know how to ask it, but like the way you're talking almost sounds like we're coming to the end of something. What is it? What is it that you're describing?
I just feel like, Spirit had said to me last night, make sure you tell Frank and the listener, this is a final chapter. I feel like we've talked about it, I think, in a previous podcast we've done together. There will be a time, where there is peace and there is this space of tranquility and the freedom to accept one another. You know, I had a spirit guide come in the other day for a client, and she was a Muslim spirit guide, but she was holding the tapestry of another religion in her hands, telling me, you tell this client of yours that everything is one. She can have her faith and still share who she is with the world. And I feel like we will be coming to a time, and the time that's coming into my head is around like 2029, around that time, where there will be more of this acceptance. But we have to accept ourselves first and all our insecurities and all of those things. I feel like that's the part that's coming to an end, because if we accept ourselves fully, we won't get so much judgment as a return for who we are and what we're doing and all of those things. But there is definitely a final chapter closing for everybody in our own ways before the missing pieces are all written in that book for us.
That's actually really optimistic. 2029 doesn't seem that far.
No, but I just feel like there's going to be some big changes between now and then that are going to be helping us step up. I mean, there's not going to be complete world peace because people are still wanting to dominate and control, but there's just going to be some shifts around that time. And I think, I'm not a numerologist, but they're telling me that the numerology at that time will be more in alignment with people being really who they are and not who they think they need to be to fight for their religion or fight for their cause, or there's not going to be so much fighting as such.
Beautiful. What about for people who don't know about Kali and this energy of Kali and the goddess of, she's a fierce goddess. I can go into the whole story of Kali and how and why she defeated, the demon by drinking all his blood before it could touch the earth, the whole story. But for people who just don't need the whole story, is this a time of Kali energy? Is she coming a lot? And what does that even mean?
Like Kali celebrate, like I don't know a huge amount of Kali, like her whole story, but because of being in the culture and born in the culture, of course, she was around us in terms of the chanting and things we did at certain times. And Kali comes up more in October with her puja time at that time. It is most definitely a time of Kali, because Kali is a representation of time, and time past, present, and future. And it's because all the timelines are merging where, parallel lives are happening now at this time. If we don't change that, we can't change this one, we can't move into the future. For me, I think the main message here for people, and because we started off with that, with, talking about time, the serpent, the puma, the condor, Kali ties in very nicely with this conversation and this time, because people are trying to fight for the past, things that like the things that have been just, they feel water under the bridge. They're like, you've ignored us. Now it's like, we can't let this go. This time of Kali is every timeline coming together so that we can have that free will to change. But she is, even though she's fierce and she's destruction, I think in one of my Monday mantras recently, it's like, can we accept destruction and peace at the same time? Because it's like those two things, depending on how you look at that word, some people take destruction quite literally in terms of we need to hurt people. That's not what Kali represents energetically. She is the divine mother of, we destroy something evil or something bad and we can create it, and knowing that the time is now to act. So yes, it's very much a time of Kali. It's probably why you are drawn to her also. But October is the time we should be really rearing her fierceness for us to be able to be very empowered by her.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then what about I guess we should talk also a little bit about the actual sessions people are doing with you, right? What's your focus right now when you work with people? What is it that you want them to shift more toward? Like candles, meditations, doing sessions with you, embracing the app more, and doing we talked about the Palladian sisters earlier. I know there's a meditation on the app around them, and it's so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I'm only one person. I can only do so many people. So the app is really the best way. And we are always constantly working on improving it and making it faster and better and all of those things. So the app's the great way. But if people just go to the website, I'm doing other smaller services to help support people on the way. And if you get a session, amazing. It'll be you're guided. It'll be the right thing for you. But there are other ways. We want to just empower you to be able to figure things out yourself also and trust your own guidance. But like I said, it's always nice to have someone validate or just guide you a little bit and be like, okay, I know what I'm doing now. So definitely the app is the way to go. Great.
Yeah, sometimes that guidance is just so useful, right? Just to like something.
We all need it. I love it when I have my medium friends like come up with something. I'm like, great, I needed to hear that. Or like even my personal assistant Lucy, she's very intuitive. She'll say things to me sometimes like, oh, I absolutely needed to hear that. It's like the signs we receive from the universe, but taking it as something like this is the guidance that we need. So it could come from someone's mouth. It could come from a shift on doing a meditation on the app or a personalized meditation. All of us, every single person in this world needs some validation and guidance sometimes so that we know like, right, I can do this. I could get through this next chapter. I am empowered to change something in my life. Because when I see people now, obviously my sessions evolve and change because I'm learning and changing also. And so Spirit is very, very particular at the moment of bringing in ancestors where there's healing within the DNA of the client. So, and like when you go to Lebanon, you will be naturally doing that with your ancestral lineage. They're bringing that up a lot. And also like these karmic things that I had with my Peru situation, that part of me is like, if you don't put that to bed, you can't actually move forward. And because they know I have the opportunity to go, they gave me a mission that I accepted. It's about really accepting the mission now that you are given, even if it feels uncomfortable, but you know that you have to do it. This might be the final chapter before something breaks through into that expansion.
I'm booking my flight. I really am. After you talk,
Coming out naturally, I feel like, and I haven't had the calling to go to Sri Lanka yet, but I know when I do, it'll be the right time, the right people to guide me through. Yeah, if you're called to go home, it's because that sacral home of where we all began is awakening. It's that golden light is coming out for everything we touch to turn into what we wanted to turn into.
what do you think is because you brought up empowering people and then you want them to find the answers themselves. You brought up something in one of your I think it was in a Monday mantra about, you were like, a documentary is not just a documentary. Like if I'm watching something, if a movie comes up for me to watch, there's a reason. And it's really interesting when I heard you say that, because I had just that week watched Aladdin, but the original one from like the 90s, right? The original Aladdin movie. And I had to pause it like every 15 minutes. I felt like I would just spiral and be like, oh my God, like it felt like a ceremony. It felt like an initiation, because that movie was so important to me as like a 9-year-old, that watching it now for some reason was just moving all kinds of things inside me. I had to keep pausing it and be like, oh my God, though I didn't even realize how much that had affected me or shaped my life.
Before all this work happened for me, I would just watch pretty much anything, horror movies, whatever. I'm so particular about what I watch now because I can feel it. And like you said, and whatever I said in the Monday mantra around that, and this leads me to a really interesting thing that happened. So my friend passed away, and he came to me. I wasn't asleep, I was awake. He came to me and he stood by the bed. I just literally got under the covers, and he said to me, my father's going to pass away by a hit and run. And I was like, what do you want me to do with that information? Like, he's like, nothing. I'm just telling you because I know you can hear it. The next day, I go onto some streaming platform because it was a weekend, I think. I was like, I want to watch a movie. And I was scrolling along and I found a movie and I thought, I'm just going to press play. I don't even know what this is about. I haven't read the synopsis. I put the movie on, and the main character in the movie is the same name as my friend that came to me the night before. And the movie was about a hit and run. And I was like, okay. And that, because, sometimes when you're a medium and you're on your own, you're like, am I going crazy? Is she talking to me? And then when they go like the tarot cards or like the ace of spades, when they actually show you that physical validation, I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy for myself. For other people, but when it's you, you're kind of like, this is. And so when we watch things, I do think the more sensitive you are to spirit, to your intuition, we do have to be mindful what we choose to watch, but also be mindful and observe what you are naturally watching. So like that, I was just like, whatever this movie is, press play. And I'm sitting there running out to my partner to say, It's like the movie is exactly what so-and-so said to me. And I just think like when we do watch things, there will be messages, or like when you were watching a ladder, having to pause and you were having these mini integrations and epiphanies of what that had done for you as a child. Because I had this book, The Magic Paintbrush, and that came up recently in a Monday mantra for me, this little book that my mum used to read to me, where this very poor boy was given a magic paintbrush by a magician or a, a healer, and he would paint whatever he wanted. But then he got too greedy, and then Karma came and went, actually, we're going to take that paintbrush away from you now because you've been too much in your ego. Obviously not written like that for a child. So I just think that we are guided to remember certain things, and we're guided to validate the messages and signs that we are receiving.
When you watch that, what do you think is happening when you watched? Because it's like it was the same storyline of what you had seen in your dream, but is that for you to understand the situation more? Is it just there's no point in trying to figure it out? It's just something to observe that happened?
Correct. Because when he came to me, I wasn't asleep. I just got into bed and I could feel him. And then I said, what are you doing here? Then he said what he said. And then the next day when I put it on, I was like you, pausing it and running outside going, oh my God, like, this is telling me exactly what he said to me, the way this whole movie is going. I knew I wasn't meant to do anything with that. It was just validation that you are not crazy, Gaia. This information will make sense to you when it makes sense to you. Because for years, Frank, I was having visions of policemen on my lawn at home. And I was freaking out about it, thinking, because our lawn is not facing the road. It's like you have to come right down to get to the grassy bit. And for years and years, I was thinking, gosh, what's going to happen? I'm really freaked out. It was about 6 years of having this vision, and it finally happened. And I was like, oh my goodness, you've been showing me for a reason. And now I understand how it's all connected to the bigger picture of what I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to be helping people. Because once those police came and I had to liaise with them on a physical level, I started getting clients where I was helping solve murders and cases where they had no answers. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting way it's going. I'm suddenly getting clients who have like unsolved situations. So they prepare you through the things that they're showing you of what could be coming next for you. It's just sometimes we don't know immediately. Like for me, I don't know immediately what that means, but eventually I'll go, now I get it.
Wow, that's so interesting. And it brings up like a few other things that have happened in my life too. Like I was watching, do you remember the show Xena? Like Xena Warrior Princess?
I love Xena.
Me too.
She's a New Zealander.
I know. And you know what? I'm watching it now. So I've watched it as a kid religiously. Then I watched it again during the pandemic lockdowns. And then now I just watched like 3 seasons randomly. So again, like 5 years later. And that's when it clicked that I was like, wait, this show's from New Zealand. And like, I think filmed in New Zealand. Yeah.
It is. I actually know quite a bit of the people who are on the in studio cast and things like that. They've been clients and people I just know in the industry. So yeah, Xena Warrior.
The woman on the show named Callisto, she was like the main enemy. She was awesome. She was so cool. She was like a villain. And she's a yoga teacher here in LA. And I have known this for 10 years, but I've never gone because I'm like, no, I'm not ruining it. You know what I mean? The magic. I don't want to meet the actress. But it's really interesting because during when I was rewatching the whole thing, this is like 5-6 years ago now, I had at the same time done this YouTube video with a Kundalini yoga. He would say like he can activate people's Shakti. This is how he describes it. For some reason, he offered me like to come and do the teacher training so that I could learn how to do this Shakti transfer. But I was not interested in doing it, and I don't know why. I was just like, this is not meant for me. I don't want this transmission of energy, whatever it is. And so I this is like people are paying like $10,000 to do this, and I just didn't want it, even though it was being offered. But my friend at the time was like, can you please reach out to him? I want to do it. Like maybe we could do it together. And I was like, I was really putting it off. I get home that same night that he asked me to reach out to this guy, and I'm watching Xena, the finale. It's like the last episode. I had been watching it for months. I'm now on the finale last season, And this guy that I was meant to reach out to but didn't want to, and I was putting it off, is the villain that she fights in the final scene. He had never done any movie per show again. I watched it. I looked him up. I Googled his name to see if he had done anything. This is the only thing, only show, only episode he had ever acted in. And I remember when it popped up, my mouth just dropped, and I was like, I paused it, and and my friend who was watching me was like, what? I was like, that's the guy all day I've been putting off texting. And he just shows up as the villain in the last scene of this show.
That is so interesting. But the lesson in that is that when you know it's something, this is why the choices that we make, people can dangle in front of us the most lucrative things or the most it's like that, I think it's the 7 of Cups card where it's all the different things that you can pick, like there's pearls coming out of a cup and there's a lizard or something coming up. It's like people can lure you in with all the charisma and this will be good for you. But you don't know what contract you are signing up with their soul. Because this is the thing I notice a lot with clients, Frank, and it's sometimes I find it hard to explain because I've only got a limited time with people. Sometimes I'll bring certain people up in a session and they'll be like, yeah, I know that person, but I don't know them very well. Like recently I had a client and I was like, there are these twins coming through and they're telling me that you have twins. And she said, I do. I said, I've got twin children. I said, okay. I said, but the father of these children is like a parasite to you. And I said, but you're not married to him anymore, are you? She said, no. And she's like, I don't really care. And I was like, well, you should care. I said, because are you still single? Because it feels like you are. And she said, I am. And I said, well, if you want to stay single for the rest of your life, then continue on not caring about how his parasitic energy affects you. So I think it's really important that we protect our boundaries and not get too drawn in by the bright lights and everything, knowing that sometimes these people are signing into something with you. Because, Frank, like any industry, not all healers are good healers. And I'm not saying anything about this person that I don't even know this person. I'm just talking generally. I've had horror stories from clients who have been abused by healers, who have been drugged by healers. The healer has power, but using this person, the vulnerable healer, to draw more power from them, and that can be a very parasitic energy. So we have to discern the choices that we're making. Are we going to pick that and go against what we know? Or are we going to pick the person that we know that really has our light in mind and not trying to take our light? Because there's a lot of that. Like in anything, you start to get more well-known. People don't like to see you shine. And so sometimes those parasites can come in a very magnetizing way. And we're being asked to be very careful of that at the moment. So I think in the example you've given is a perfect example of, if you know it's not for you, signing a deal with that might be giving you something else that you weren't anticipating.
Wow. So you're saying that it can be, wow. What I saw was in like Sleeping Beauty, how like the apple that puts her to sleep, it's almost like it's alluring, it's shiny, it's this beautiful red, juicy apple. But the person serving that apple is actually serving it with the intention of hurting you, not helping you.
100%. And that's the thing, the intention. It's like why you ask me why are my meditations so effective, the personalized meditations, is because my intention is specifically for you. It's not like for everybody, it's for you. And it comes from a light place. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in the position that I am in with the work that I do. But I do know, because I have been warned by self of working with people that are more wanting to take down your power and hold you back than allowing you to shine. And that's where you have to be very careful where you're going and what you're doing based on that person's intention. Like you said, it may look all alluring and beautiful and draw you in, but at what cost? So that's why when I see clients, I'm like, it wouldn't be coming out of my mouth if it wasn't relevant. So you not caring about me addressing this, I can't help you shift the energy, because you still want to be held on lifetime after lifetime by that man that doesn't want to see you shine. And so I see that a lot in varying ways with many clients. They get frustrated when I bring something up that they don't want to talk about, but they need to talk about it because that is where I can get in and draw it out so they could be free of that somehow ill-intentioned person. And sometimes those people don't even know they're ill-intentioned. It is just their own insecurities of somehow if that person shines, it's going to take away from me, when we know that's not how the world works.
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end, my debt don't extend me all my dividends. If it did, I'd have to